News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and
George.
All right, welcome back. It is the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com, where we've got a big show for you today as we're heading into Shut Up. We are back. We got a special show for you today. We're going to start off with just Eddie Radosevich and myself.
Well, it's the Summer of George, so it's like I figured out what the Summer of George is.
What is
it's
it?
basically don't show up to work for a month and then just take vacation. So yeah, we're a two-man show.
You know what? You're making this hard on him because I had to actually tell him to unplug last night.
I know. I'm giving him a hard time because I know he'll listen to
I
this.
think
Happy
you've gone
birthday
too
to
far.
George.
Happy birthday to George. George PTOA. I think we're calling him now. That was the listener's scooper's suggestion. PTOIA.
I like that. That's pretty good, actually.
Pay time off if you don't know what we're talking about. Anyway, enough with the guff, I guess you could say, because we have a special guest here. I don't know why he's on this show. Or not why we'd always love having great guests on the show, but why he is coming down to our level to come onto this show. That is Joe Castiglione, the Athletic Director of the University of Oklahoma. Welcome, Joe.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, I feel like we need
very-
like that background, the clapping.
It was nice, appropriately from Eddie, a nice golf clap. But so first of all, it is really special to be here. There's a lot of emotions going through my mind right now. First of all, it's not going to your level. You guys have grown. You've grown. And now being able to be part of this, and truly, just a side note, congratulations on everything you've done to really grow this entire media company, I'm calling it now. Because
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
I have a little glimpse to some things that fans haven't seen yet, what you've got in store. I'm sure you'll announce it at a later time, but
You're no stranger to this place, which
no.
I really appreciate.
Yes,
You've
and,
seen it actually in the various different stages as well.
Yep. And I've been in this space. It was being used by our Sooner Club at one point.
Yeah, you
But-
guys actually built
Yeah.
a lot of this out yourselves.
Yeah, and our all of our development staff is upstairs, so hopefully you hear a lot of movement because they're closing new gifts. You know, that are
Absolutely.
going to something.
I run up there every once in a while just to make sure they're on their P's and Q's. I take the elevator.
Well, he actually sprints to the office because he knows that if he slows down, they're going to ask him for something.
Sure.
You know, because that's what they're trained to do.
Right.
But, you know, what they're doing to help our athletes and our programs in general be successful. And I also want to say, you know, part of the sort of unique emotions running through my mind, first of all, I'm not sitting in for George. He's irreplaceable. But I'm happy he's enjoying vacation. And I'd also like to add my birthday wishes to George. So happy birthday, George. And finally, this is a bit of a role reversal.
It is, yeah.
It
You're
is.
sitting in a very special place.
My son went over to the dark side. You know, he's
Yeah.
a member of
We
the
recruited
media.
him. We
Yeah, well,
recruited him over.
This is a chair he sits. This is pretty kind. This is cool. And yeah, so when he's asking me questions, I have to say, am I talking to my son? Am I talking to a member of the Sooner Scoop staff?
That's right.
I will tell you this. He's pretty good. We once in a while, we try and get him to tell us something, but he's really good about, you know, my dad, I know, here's his favorite thing to say. You know, I've never talked about that with my dad. He's been trained well.
Yeah, yes, and there has been as he was growing up and he got more and more interested, probably a better word, inquisitive. You know, he would ask me I would have to say, some pretty deep questions, and I'd have to really think about, do I want to tell him or do I put him in a bad position by telling him, and that he has to walk around and act
Right.
like he doesn't know.
Right.
So a lot of times I chose not to tell him because I didn't want to put him in a tough position. Same for Jonathan. But Joe's wherever he goes, he gets asked a lot of questions, and I don't want him to have to feel uncomfortable. It's easier to say, "Look, I don't know."
I really don't. I promise.
Seriously, going back to grade school, I really believe it was 8th grade. We were going through a coaching search, and the teacher during class was asking him about the coaching search and who I was going to hire. I said, that is off limits.
Yeah.
I had to go call the principal about that.
Oh, wow.
But I knew he would get put in spots. And look, he's done a great job, and I'm really proud of him being his own man. And proud to have him and Jonathan as my sons. But I'm really excited what he's doing as his own person.
He's been great. It's been great in the show.
Yeah, and it's been great having him and Isaac. And by the way, last thing, and then we'll get to some heavy, the big stuff. But you actually, people might not know this, are responsible for the name of their show.
I am.
I wanted to call it the Family Tree because there's a Kings of Leon song called the Family Tree, and Caleb and Jared, they were like fired up. They were like, yeah, they can use our song. We'll get the copyright release and all this stuff. And so I thought, that's perfect. But you came up with the Family Business, and when I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's the name.
It just,
It's perfect.
It was kind of, maybe it's my Italian upbringing. But it just, he was throwing around some names, and I said, well, there's no podcast or anything of the type out there called that, so why not? Still could use, the music. I love Kings of Leon. In fact, I was texting with Nathan over the weekend. They're crushing it on tour right now. Their new album
just started their UK tour. The new album is fantastic. It really is.
Really good. So happy for them. But so it's fun to watch how Isaac and Joe have developed that and with no formal training, and they're growing.
Yeah,
and
it's getting better. It really is.
I get people stop me all the time that say they have watched it. And some people say, hey, I really love your Twitter game. I said, now let me stop you. That's not me. That's not me. But in any event, it's fun to watch them. And both of them, and so many other the coaches' kids, including the Venables boys, they all grew up for a lot of years together.
That was a great episode.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know that Brent wanted a lot of that information out there, but by the way, do you remember the weight room incident? How big of a deal was that?
100%. I happened to be there like the hour before it happened.
Oh, no.
I was working out and left. And later that day, I got a call that the weight room flooded. I said, it didn't rain, did it? Did the pipe break? They said it was a suppression system
He ripped on the sprinkler head and it set off the whole thing.
I said, well, how does a leak? That has to be a pipe breaking, not so much a leak.
Yeah.
Well, then they started getting further into
There's a little bit more to the story here.
And it was a very weird place for the sprinkler.
Right, underneath a staircase?
It was underneath a staircase. So when I heard about the story, it kind of made sense that could have happened, where it was located. And they had these physio balls and med balls and everything sort of located underneath the stairway. And I'm guessing he just chucked it in there like any kid would do.
Sure.
And just had a little bit too much trajectory on it and caught the sprinkler, and there it went. So we had to literally take up the brand new floor we had just put down, dry it out, do all that.
That's amazing. It's a great story, though.
It's a true
looking
story.
back on
I
it.
remember it. I remember it because, as you know, Brent is a workout fanatic.
Oh, yeah.
He is in supreme shape.
Yeah.
And, he just had Jake and T-Bone in the weight room with him. I want to say it was a Saturday morning. I think it was.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
We might need to work on some, mending the fences between Schmitty and Tyler, because Brent said that he was not allowed in the weight room, and I think he still says he's never spoken about it to Schmitty to this day. So
that I did not know.
That's great.
That I didn't know.
Hey, it's one of the things I really appreciate is I know you are just swamped right now. You got all kinds of stuff going on. One of those is the entry into the SEC officially on July 1st. Big celebration. It's going to be, there's a lot of things that we're interested in, but I guess for you, is this a very, like, I'm sure any kind of feelings you had about leaving the Big 12 are long gone, or any kind of, just reminiscing about that. But has it been just really a joyful time for you knowing that this is coming?
Very much so. The only thing I'd say about what you mentioned in regards to the Big 12, I mean, there's a great deal of respect. I was at the table putting the Big 12 conference together early in my career as an athletic director while at the University of Missouri. And so there's a lot of history there. It's not going to just get wiped off my memory. But so you have friendships, you have relationships. I'm a fan. I'm a sports fan. So I understand and appreciate traditions. Think about all those people that were in roles back then. And, some of them have passed away. A good number of them have retired. And so you think about all those relationships and what we did to really, in essence, create a new conference. Even though 8 of the 12 were going forward together, it really was a new conference. And so I do have an appreciation of that. I mean, of course, all those years prior, I was at Missouri as well, so I know the Big 8, and remember the fondness of how connected the 8 schools were. Although when I was at Missouri, I always heard about Oklahoma and Nebraska getting their way, and then we went to Big 12. Now it's Oklahoma and Texas getting their way, and probably then people probably talked about Texas and Nebraska, and there was a lot of made up about the North-South. And remember how they had I never liked the designation. It was really a scheduling matrix. Why wasn't the North versus the South, unless the two teams that came up through those divisions met for the championship? But a lot more was made of that than really was. But when the conference realignment started in really early 2010, and it led to the decisions that were made in the summer of 2010, the world for us changed dramatically, and we thought we could withstand it, and did, with 10 teams until Missouri and Texas A&M decided to leave and go to the SEC. So having lived through the beginning, the huge changes in 2010 and then in 2012, and now bring 2 new members in, and Chris Delconte's told the story many times about TCU's pursuit of the Big 12 back then. I mean, so you have a lot of great memories of stories, but now the opportunity to move forward into a fantastic league, one that has made their mark in every single sport. And this is about stability and sustainability. We saw the world going forward in a way that very few people saw at the time, but we knew it was going to change dramatically. And we knew other things that were being talked about behind the scenes. And it was most important for us to be the strong leaders for the University of Oklahoma and make sure Oklahoma is always in the forefront of college athletics. And that's amongst many other things that led to our decision to pursue membership in the SEC. And since that time, it has been fantastic. We wanted to leave the Big 12 in a classy way and fulfill every one of our obligations, and we did, which is not seen very often in conference realignment.
Sure.
We kind of broke the mold. Texas, the same. We all went through this to do it. As difficult as it was, and certainly emotionally to hear it for people when it was announced or leaked first, then announced, we still, from that point forward, did everything in an honorable way. And then to be welcomed in the SEC like we have been, I will tell you, y'all, it feels very natural.
It does. Yeah. I mean, being in
natural.
Tennessee last year, even before you were members, it felt like it was, first off, it felt like it was a well-oiled machine. I mean, something that, I have to think covering the NFL is the only thing that would probably feel like that. But the way that SEC media and even Greg Sankey, I mean, it was just like a welcome mat. I mean, everything felt like a welcome mat.
There are many like-minded institutions, many flagship universities like we are here for the state of Oklahoma. The fan bases, as you know, many of our fans have great relationships that were forged through some of the competition in the years where we've played, Alabama or Tennessee, to really name the two most prominent. And Commissioner Sankey, the staff, the AD group in which I sit, the presidents and chancellors, which Joe Harris is part of, everybody's been, fantastic. And, we're joining them, but we're bringing a lot of our passion and tradition and excitement and forward thinking to a group that looks at the world similarly. So we're excited about not just the transition that'll take place officially on Monday, but the months and years ahead.
All right, let's take a little break from Joe Castiglione and tell you about our Enjoy Vision look around, our fresh perspective, if you will. I would say my fresh perspective is that Joe is a guy with pretty good vision for the future. And, with we're getting ready to talk about some NIL stuff with him. That stuff is always interesting because it's changing. But you know what doesn't change? The vision of Eddie Radosevich. He can continue to read small print and fine print, even though I don't know if he knows what's really in his contract.
For about the last decade, I've sat in front of Joe Castiglione at the Lloyd Noble Center at the basketball games. They're on the baseline. And every once in a while, he's yelling at John Higgins, and I think to myself, you know what? Maybe he would need laser vision. Maybe he needs to go see my friends at Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. Combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care, which was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the Unofficial 40 listener is they're giving $400 off of LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com and use promo code U40 if you're interested in $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
And now Eddie's vision will take us back to Joe Castiglione.
It seems like Monday's obviously going to be a celebration of moving into the SEC, but at the same time, it also feels like it is the beginning of what was a very long process, especially when the report came out, I think in the summer of 21. We were just leaving Big 12 media days. And now it's like, okay, it is finally here, though. It's almost like everybody has to get ready. Every sport has to get ready.
He's called
knowing the prowess
Big 12
that
media
is.
days, by the way, on some of his shows.
The what?
Saying that we're going to be at Big 12
Oh,
media
every
days.
time. I can't get it out of my head that it's just usually this time of the year you're starting to think about the Big 12 and everything that goes into the season.
Yeah.
I've been at Big 12 media days quite a few times. I have never been to the SEC media days, but from what I'm told, it's quadruple the number of people that go. Of course, you're talking about now 16 teams, many more states, heavily populated states, and it's 4 days, so and they broadcasting live every one of the 4 days, so there's a lot of content there. So I know you'll have a lot of fun hanging out. Meeting a lot of new people that you'll cross paths with.
I'm excited to see how many OU fans are going to show up in the lobby because, I think the Big 12
That's
always
like the first basis of SEC fandom.
Yeah, it's kind of taboo. Like the SEC, they're crazy people.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want that in the Big 12. Go down to a lobby and just to see a coach walk in, and then you go experience it last year like we did. Like, I can't wait till Dallas next year and seeing how many OU fans are going to show up.
I think our fans are SEC ready in that regard.
Yeah,
they'll and especially being in Dallas, it gives them a chance to come out on any one of the 4 days that are there. And of course, there's a lot going on in Dallas that same week with the baseball All-Star game taking place. So it'll be a lot of activity.
Real quick, actually starting June 30th, you're going to have a race to the SEC 5K glow run. That's going to be 11 o'clock Sunday evening. And you're going to fit it begins at the Brooks Mall, immediately north of Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, and concludes at Owen Field's 50-yard line. So that's going to be really cool. being able to finish a 5K. I couldn't finish. I've always said this is the strangest fact about me. I ran cross country in high school, and I have done a 5K around the duck pond before. But if I were in any kind of shape at all, I would think it'd be pretty cool to end up a race
can
on
walk.
50.
You don't have to run. There's a.
Let's not get
version.
ahead of ourselves, Joe.
Yeah. Yes. So this Glow Run was a concept of our marketing staff, and I want to give them all the credit because while I love the idea, I was thinking, wait a minute now, this is Sunday night.
Yeah.
The kind of the runners, maybe they wouldn't be as excited about doing this late night before a work day, but I have to give them credit. All props. Sold out.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Well over 1,000 runners that have already registered. So, I mean, they're putting their registration down. It's not like, hey, yeah, I think I'll show up. No, they are absolutely registered, and there are more trying to get in. And they can, there's only so much space that they can have. So I think they've added a few extra, but not a lot. And so that's going to be pretty cool, like you said. And then so for people that are in and around the stadium or our campus, they will hear fireworks around midnight.
Oh, wow. Man, nice.
That's going to be beautiful.
Yeah. So it's, of course, they're getting in the mood for 4th of July, but we just want people to know. So it'll be really a great, as the clock turns midnight, the sort of the entry into the SEC begins.
But you've also got, other stuff. I know a lot of people love the equipment sales that you guys. It used to be in the spring. Now it's kind of transformed into the summer. But that'll be going on. I believe that is
it's during the day.
During the day,
Monday.
2 to 7 on Monday at the Mosier Indoor Track. So a lot of people. But there's going to be, for people that can't get here, there's going to be a lot of SEC Network programming around this. Paul Feinbaum's going to be here. Dari Noak, I know, is going to be up in Tulsa in the morning for breakfast with Barry Switzer.
And then back down here broadcasting. So the SEC Network is going to be carrying any number of these events during the course of the day, some live, some taped for replay later on in the evening. As you mentioned, Paul Feinbaum's show will be telecast live from basically right there on the colonnade between the stadium and McCuistion Fieldhouse. So really easy access for people to come out and be there for the show, just sort of like a game day atmosphere, if you will. They've got a lot of great guests lined up. Paul was here for a special taping, maybe 6 weeks ago, and he's really excited to come back. And, they have their own game day show that travels around to SEC campuses separate and apart from the ESPN game day. So sometimes they're at the same place together, but a lot of times they're different. And so it's really great to have him. Commissioner Sankey and several members of the staff will be here during the July 1st celebration. And when we say celebration, why did we do this? Gets asked a lot. And it was almost exclusively to engage our fan base in this occasion, to rather than have some perfunctory press conference, sort of symbolizing the switch. We wanted to expand it where we can engage the fan base in this. And it's at a time of the year where why not? There isn't as much going on in terms of connecting to OU in person. So that's why we thought about this SEC launch and doing it as a way to get our fans involved in this. And so, like you said, we'll be up in Tulsa, waking up in the SEC. We picked 2 great breakfast spots, and there'll be people in Tulsa. I'll be in Oklahoma City at Toby Keith's.
Eddie's going to be there with you.
Oh, great.
Be up there, yeah.
And Joe Harris, our president, will be there. And you mentioned Dari and Coach Switzer. A couple of our other coaches will be up there. And same for in Oklahoma City. And then we come back to campus. So we have an all-staff meeting that they get a chance to meet Commissioner Sankey. And then there are a couple other events. And then we start in the afternoon. And then there's a gala for the donors on Monday night, and then the party in the Palace. We always talk about the party at the Palace. So other than Paul Feinbaum's show being outside, everything else will be inside the football stadium, and we invite all of our fans to come in and take part at party in the Palace. There'll be a lot of going on the game field. Great place to get pictures. Very few people get a chance to go down there. We'll have lots of interactives, food. We'll have live music, and in addition to what's going on at the Palace, we have a couple of open houses. So
that's what we wanted to talk to you about. I mean,
I think that a lot of people are excited, obviously, to come down to the stadium and all that. But I know that I've talked to even Bob Prisbill. He is giddy about seeing the insides of Love's Field and everything that comes with it.
And we just had Justin McLeod from D1 Softball on, and his point was that this field is so magnificent that it's a good thing just for softball in general, for people to come in and see that, and that something like this can be built for a women's sport.
And as you know, by attending a good number of the games this year, even the standing room only areas have been just so well received. I've had people stop me who are leaning against the rail saying, "This is awesome.
It's amazing.
I can be here. I can see. I can go over and get some food. I can move around." He said, "This is fantastic." And so the whole part of the vision of the stadium was to keep the engagement of the fans, because softball has a way of connecting.
Sure.
Maybe more so than most other sports. Maybe there's some basketball arenas, you could say that. A few football stadiums, the way that the old traditional ones were built, but the new ones feel a little more spread out. Softball has that connection to fans, and we're going from the smaller Marita Hines field to more than doubling the size of the seating areas, but we wanted to keep that intimacy, if you will, so people could feel like they're part of the action, and we were really proud of the way we achieved it.
All right. Looking forward to July 1st. I do want to hit on one thing. I know you're pressed for time. I don't think that I knew how crazy city council life was until I saw the first initial, not the planning commission that you appeared at, and I think maybe you have attended the one before that when.
Well, I've been at several city council meetings. It only takes one, but I've been at quite a few.
Yeah, you see all the same people, and everyone would get up and say the same things over and over. But I realized this the other day. We were talking after the Regents meeting. Like, we both have lived in Norman now for around 26 years. And I was curious, like, leading into this, like, I know we're not asking you to tell us when you're going to retire. People ask your son that all the time on the Family Business Podcast, by the way. But do you see yourself as a guy that retires in Norman? Is that where you are in life, or is there some Florida place or something you want to go to?
Well, I think both. In that sense.
Step outside today and might be wanting to move out of Norman. 100
maybe
degrees,
Colorado,
105.
where George is. Yeah.
Yeah, as we all know, coaches, ADs, that we're engaged 24/7, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
We really are. Even on vacation, things happen.
I've heard about your vacations.
Yeah, they get blown up.
They've got to find a place without cell coverage for you.
Yeah, I found the cruise ship. It's a good place. That's not the only one, except when we're at port, but at least in the ocean. But so there is a part of me, and of course, my wife Krista and I talk about this too. That we'd like to have some time of the year where maybe you're in the mountains, or I'm born in South Florida, so I love the water, the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere where you have a little bit of variety. But I hope when the time comes that I leave Oklahoma in the best position possible. That's my dream, to leave Oklahoma with a upward trajectory that just, greatness is still up on the ladder. We're doing great, but we're continuing to climb, and that whoever I get to hand it off to, they continue to take it even farther. But that you can come back and be part of what's developed. I mean, the relationships that are here, those aren't going to go away, whether it's the coaches, the former athletes. Actually, you're really never a former athlete. You're just an athlete. They have to leave former out anymore. We're not taking anything away.
Yeah.
But the fan base, that's special. I mean, everything. My kids were raised here. One of them was born here. Joe was only a year and a half when we moved here. So we love Norman. It's a great quality of life. Obviously, being part of the university, I don't see any reason why you would want to leave it. And
let me the reason I'm asking you is because I think people have that, I don't know, the naysayers are the people that are against the arena. It's almost like, oh, it's the big bad university coming in telling us how to run our town. Well, it's your town too.
Right. I mean, we're taxpayers. Our kids have been part of the public school system. We are very supportive of our community, engaged in our community, and we're not going anywhere. I mean, we're not like a pro sports team that can threaten to move somewhere else. We're not doing that. We're trying to be a great partner to our city, our county, the surrounding area, the state. And we're not trying to create something through this entertainment district that is just a vanity project. This is really special. It's a transformative opportunity for Norman. And it's going to create jobs. That is clear. That's not a statement you make trying to sell something. It will create jobs. It will also address some of the housing shortage that is here. And it will become a destination to really take advantage of new people that are coming to our city that we cannot accommodate. Let's face it.
Sure.
We're going to have new people beginning this fall come to Norman, come to the state of Oklahoma for the first time in their life. And what we want them to do is leave with a huge smile on their face, other than what happened to their team on the field or the court.
Yeah.
Want to beat them. But we want them to be able to leave our community saying, now that is a great experience. That is a place I want to go back to. I love it. It just has some other places that resonate with people that, it's a place you have to go. And they go start talking to the people who haven't been here yet saying, you can't believe what's going on in Norman or state of Oklahoma. And right now, we don't have enough hotel rooms. We don't have a way of accommodating that many people who are, albeit here temporarily, but there's going to be a flow. And so we want to show this place off as best as it can. This is not taken away from anything that exists. In fact, this is additive. It's accretive.
Sure.
And what I believe that this entertainment district, and we'll talk about the arena in a second, but the synergy of it all is going to create a halo effect. And what I mean by that is it's going to, create a, really a wave that helps other businesses, because people they can't all come to the same place at the same time. They're going to go other places, but it might spur some other important growth that helps the city of Norman be even stronger, which relates to everything that we need to have a great quality of life. First responders, police, fire, infrastructure, roads, streets, bridges, our school system, just, adding to the quality of life. And that's the vision behind all of this. Yes, for the University of Oklahoma, it is an arena that we would want to be part of, but we're only going to use it 24% of the dates.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves you, think about that, 76% of the dates available in a given year to use for a lot of other things that benefit Norman that, quite candidly, few are coming here right now. Big trade shows, conventions, obviously more concerts, other kinds of ways that an arena can be activated and bring more and more people. So the whole entertainment district together is what the big draw is. It's not individually breaking it up in pieces. It's the synergy of it all. And right there along I-35, which makes it a 25-minute drive closer for the biggest population area of the
100%.
state of Oklahoma.
Well, and I liked what Jenny Baranchik said, in her statement when she stood up and talked. But it's like as an employer, as a business owner here in Norman, you want talent to be here. You want people to be close by. And I'm under no illusions that a young single person isn't going to want to live at downtown Oklahoma City. They're just going to. I mean,
I can speak from
yeah
personal experience.
Well, like Eddie, he lived right over here in this little
lived
house
right on the corner on Duffy.
And I was talking to somebody about it the other day. It's like once you get like 26 years old and you're living in Norman, you're a single guy. It just feels creepy because you're where are you going to go hang out with a bunch of college kids? Like, no, you want to go around and go to bars where there are adults like you around. But, if you are, someone that starts to have a family, enjoy doing things, besides going up to the city all the time. It's just, Norman is not a very diverse place in terms of things to do. Unless you're from, and a lot of the people that come in are coming to the mall from other places in Oklahoma. And I just think this city has to try something.
Well, it's non-debatable that Norman isn't a great place to raise a family. It is.
Yeah.
So that part will continue to grow and be hopefully even better. The point you're making is there's a demographic that Norman's missing out.
Right.
And the data shows it.
Sure.
If you're 25 years old, unless you're married, there's something else maybe keeping you here, they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they're living in Oklahoma City. Eddie,
Right.
reverse commuting.
George has moved up there.
Yeah, reverse commuting. So it's not like they don't like Norman and they don't patronize all the businesses in Norman, but for a living, that's a vibe. It wasn't that way when I
Right.
first came to Oklahoma. People would not talk about being in downtown Oklahoma City as a place to live. Really, that wasn't as exciting as it is now. And it just, we're not stating anything but the obvious. That's a fact. The data proves it. So we're not by itself. The entertainment district isn't going to solve all that.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's a indicator of a vision that brings everything good about Norman together with it and puts it out there for people to say, okay. And we're going to get development in Norman that probably isn't looking at Norman right now because you have something that exciting taking place. I know people want to wait and see and then believe it when they see it, but visionaries can't act that way.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to do. And the fact of the matter is, this is not going to be a burden on any taxpayer in the city of Norman. It's not. It's not like going to the taxpayers and saying, we're going to raise your taxes. We're going to take a piece of the taxes that you're paying right now and fund this project. No, the 80% of it's being funded by the developer and OU. We're putting in, in the course of a 25-year period, well over $100 million towards the project, plus other things we bring. It's this district of undeveloped land right now that is being defined to use the taxes for all the new building, all the new sales for that period of time to pay off the debt. So right now it's not generating any tax returns for the city either. So what we're trying to do is incentivize people to come, and you can pay it off earlier because you have such great growth. And then if that happens, then they can decide, how once paid off, the revenue goes to the city. And by the way, we're only talking about 3% roughly of the sales tax. It's not the whole 8 and something percent. It's only 3% of the 8%. There's a certain formula of sales tax that has to go to police, fire, and other important city services that support the infrastructure around the district. So I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. I realize in going through this process, people will counter everything that we say. I get it. It's all part of it. But we really believe in Norman. We really believe this is a great opportunity for Norman and Cleveland County. And we have worked intentionally through a collaborative process, being open, transparent for now the better part of 2 years to get to this point. And hopefully we get the support of the city council to move it forward.
Real quick, and I know you got to get out here, and I'm sorry for keeping you, but what's your one message to fans right now that see what's going on at NIL and, it's a new collective, and What about the old one? What happens to my money I was given there? And what's your one message to fans about what's going on out there?
Fair question, fair point. If there's not knowledge about what's taking place, this is the message is we have unified under one umbrella. The other collectives have done great work in their individual rights. We, again, see the world changing pretty rapidly. We're still going to be in this world of collectives for a period of time, but we know that there's movement towards settling the class action lawsuits. A lot of that you'll hear about late summer, fall. But we know at some point we're going to be sharing revenue with our athletes. The formula hasn't been defined yet, but it will get to what it was supposed to be, assuming the rules and the structure and the governance get put together along with this settlement, where NIL is supposed to be reflective of fair market value.
Right.
We all know it's not. I mean, who's kidding who here? It's not. But it's done outside. This is done outside. The difference for us at the moment is, I want to make it clear, it's still outside. No matter how much people want to yell at us, we cannot take athletic department budget and send it to a collective. We can't do it. So anything that we generate to support the funds that go to the athletes for a wide variety of uses, engagements, endorsements, appearances, whatever it might be, it all comes from other funds. Donors have stepped up. Businesses are now engaging. It wasn't that long ago where the businesses like, well, this is okay, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Now it's become, in this endeavor for One Oklahoma is truly a step toward a business model, because that's what it has to be. At least the way I see, as much as we can tell about the world going forward. As you know, we've all talked about how this is changing so rapidly, you barely get line of sight to something before it vaporizes, but this is what we believe the wave of the future, because once the revenue sharing takes place, and however that's defined, NIL is still going to play a role, but it's going to follow and track a fair market value approach. So we need to have what is in essence is a marketing agency, a talent agency, going out and helping find fair market value deals for athletes. Those that volunteer for it. Now, we're going to be having also the ability to monetize the athletes' rights, because in the revenue share, we get access to it now. Some of the things that they do anyway, they'll get compensated.
Sure.
Others, that we can help elevate them in their own brand in association with partnering it with OU's brand. So again, very, very innovative, very creative. We've got 4 people already hired. We have our plans to hire several more in the creative area, in the business side, trying to really, professionalize this, for lack of a better word. And I really believe that this is the wave of the future. So to the people that have been involved in any of the other collectives, everything is transferring over. They're not going to notice any difference in terms of what they've already paid for, other than more. And so if they've already paid for their subscription, they are going to get honored. There's nothing that's going to happen to them there. And then as we go forward, then the subscriptions that they buy in the future will go, through into One Oklahoma. Between
The city council meetings and NIL dealings and everything in between, it seems like half the job right now, you just got to be like a little bit of a psychic and predicting the future of what's going to happen.
Yep. Would you like me to read your poem? I'm getting there. But, 1 minute we're doing the normal business. Another minute there's a facility project. The next minute we're doing fundraising for not just facilities or scholarships, but NIL. Coaches are calling. They're because the recruits are asking.
Sure.
What do I do? What can I do? I really work hard to try to stay in close communication with our head coaches and staff. It's tough because they'll go somewhere and hear something from another coach, and then they'll call, and sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's way off
Yeah.
base. And so I've said this many times. I love our coaching staff. I mean, they are phenomenal. I mean, that, sometimes you just have the AD and then you have your coaches and there's maybe some distance. I mean, we work hard at trying to be a great family. They're great because they push. They're advocates, they're champions, and I need to be that, and have always known this, but need to be that for them too. But getting to work with the group of coaches we have at Oklahoma, it's a blessing for an AD. Just have great people who are at the top of their game, and we want to be sure that Oklahoma stays at the top of the game. We're not perfect. There are places that in the world that might be set up, for advantages that we don't have at Oklahoma. Texas being in the city of Austin, Ohio State being a city like Columbus, a few others, that you could name. There are some built-in advantages, but what we have to do is be the best at who we are.
Joe, you've done the chair proud today.
Well,
the Joe Jr. chair has been well represented.
I appreciate that, and I will be turning it back over to the rightful seat holder.
Well, and next time we can get into the real conspiracies that we usually talk about on this podcast and all
Time
that.
for you to leave, Joe.
Mike Houck's doing the wrap it up motion. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm shocked tailgating hasn't come up.
We got extra flags if you want to fly one.
Absolutely. Just outside of the athletic department.
Yeah, just
That'd
put it
be
up in your
beautiful.
window.
Tailgating space this year.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I thought last year was a
do they
step in the
do?
right
What's
direction.
what are they doing over here? Like right on Boyd, like they're
It's
like
gonna be
it's
more
all leveled
tailgating
off. It's like taking the grass out and everything, or
Well, I have to go see where you're talking about.
Okay.
But
I didn't even
but
notice it
along
until this
Boyd,
week.
Right there in front of the visitor center, there's some tailgating space that's going to open
Okay.
up.
Be cool.
As we go, we have we're exploring lots of new areas for tailgating. We opened up, some areas that had been falsely blamed on the athletic department.
Right, right.
On Lindsay Street.
Here's the thing about that.
but,
When you dig more into it, you realize that premium tailgating is way more prevalent in the SEC than it is anywhere else.
Well, and that's tailgating space that was never open to the public.
Sure.
We didn't trade one for the other.
We just wanted to be mad, Joe. Can we just have a good riot every once in a while?
Well, the part that got lost in all that was a response to the fan base. They say, look, I can't show up at Thursday, at midnight, put my tailgate. I can't do it. Can you all come up with a way that you could set up tailgates for us? So we did, and got blasted for it. But,
And you don't have to worry about tailgating at 8:30 in the morning as much as maybe they did a couple years ago.
Concierge service. They walk in,
Yeah.
the whole tailgate.
That's the way I'd do it. I mean,
That's one of the points that I'm most excited about, and when we do radio shows outside of the Oklahoma City market and stuff, just in terms of the excitement for this schedule and everybody that's coming through Norman, as you talked about earlier.
Well, I think
It's going to be awesome.
When I first started here in '98, tailgating was minimal. At
Sure,
best.
I can
Minimal.
imagine.
And so we really promoted it, and it grew and grew and grew. As you know, there are a lot of people that show up to tailgate that don't go to the game. They're just there for the tailgate.
100%.
And they are creative. I will also say it's one of the ways that visiting fan bases have recognized the great experience they have when they come to the Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, because our fans are so welcoming. They're having them come by, eat, drink. They're friendly. And then they get to see the creativity in tailgating. I think, I will tell you, I think our fans are going to take tailgating to a whole nother level. They're already, scheming what they could do. And that's why we want to be able to open up more space for them to do that. And we'll see how it evolves. But I know President Harris has been fully engaged at helping that happen and making more spaces on campus. And hey, we just want people to be here and want to feel good that they were here and come back often.
That's the Godfather. That's Joe Castiglione. We appreciate the time today. Best of luck on July 1st. Can't wait to see the celebration before our very eyes. And I know we're looking forward to seeing Love's Field, too. That's going to be cool.
Look forward to hosting you more and more. appreciate you guys. Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me on.
All right. Thank you.
I will turn the throne back over to my son or George. Either one.
What, either or?
All right, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Well, that was Joe Castiglione, and we're now joined by Josh McCuistion. We're going to talk a little bit of recruiting, but first, just wanted to, again, say how much we appreciate. You got to realize all the stuff that he's trying to put together right now with the SEC getting ready to be official on July 1st. For him to make time like that for us, man, just huge.
It was awesome.
It was great.
It was awesome.
So now we welcome in Josh McCuistion. Let's talk a little bit of recruiting because
Talked to Jack Nicklaus and Joe Castiglione this week. Not bad.
Well, and like the way for him to slum on the U40. Of all places,
I know. Things are
where
changing.
does Josh McCuistion fall on that list, Eddie? I feel like just third, like a strong third.
It's a strong third. I'm
trying to think.
There's one, there's two, and then there's three.
I guess there's a 7-day period where you saw Josh in person, and then Jack Nicklaus, and then
now
Joe.
And now
Joe came in studio,
the
sat down
Godfather.
with us, and everything. It was great.
It was awesome.
So anyway, Josh, a lot of things to catch up on with you. We've had some commitments, some decommitments, or commitments elsewhere. Not decommitments, but commitments elsewhere. And I guess let's just start with what we haven't talked about on either of the YouTube shows, which would be, we did do the instant reaction for C.J. Nixon yesterday, but he being the latest commitment for Oklahoma.
Yeah, the big kind of tight end, two-way athlete is really seen. I should have led with defensive end. He'll start at defensive end. I don't think there's a lot of question about that. Now, we've talked a lot. He is a guy that's very versatile, 6'5", 220 pounds, moves very naturally. He is what you talk about when we talk about all these NFL tight ends that were good basketball players and then realize their feet and their hands and everything else that made them good basketball players can make them great football players. That he fits a tight end model. But again, Miguel Chavis made him a very early priority. They've been on him for 18 months or more, like really a serious guy that they wanted. So this is something that I think it feels anticlimactic because OU fans expected C.J. Nixon to be part of things for so long. But at the same time, it's a big win because this is a guy they really wanted in state.
I really felt like our YouTube video, I rewatched it a little bit because we did record that when Josh was still here. George was not on vacation when we recorded that.
I guess we didn't really think about that.
And so, Josh, you were in studio, and by the time it came out, it was almost like watching an episode of Friends where they don't have cell phones and it becomes very apparent they hadn't invented cell phones yet. It was a little dated in certain areas, but so we apologize for that. But we also know you guys want as quick information as you can get. So
yeah, why weren't we talking about Jaden O'Neal, guys? What was going on there? We just locked ourselves in the office for an entire weekend, apparently.
That did happen on Monday. We talked to Jaden on Sunday evening going into the announcement. But
great kid.
Awesome kid. I think he's one of those guys that you look at when you're putting together a recruiting class that, obviously he's a quarterback and very comfortable in that position. It would seem, though, just in terms of the commitment and everything that went into that, I don't think it can be stated enough. And we talked about it on the show with Jaden, and then we also talked about it kind of in the breakdown as well. But what a massive win for Seth Luttrell.
It really is. And you just can't overstate it, guys, because we know this is the position that it all starts with. You talk about some of Oklahoma's most highly regarded classes just a couple years ago with Jackson Arnold. A lot of that was built on the back of Jackson Arnold, and then he started to recruit and, obviously had a big hand in Peyton Bowen. But even beyond that, he really did a lot to build that class. Jaden O'Neal has the kind of personality and the kind of, credibility that you think, okay, he can be that guy too. He's going to help build this class. Guys, the first time, when Eddie and I spoke with him for that show on YouTube, and certainly go watch it if you haven't, because I agree, Jaden was great in that interview. He was talking. He already had an idea of, I'm going to be recruiting this guy and that guy. There was no we'll have to talk to the coaches. He knows what he's doing. And part of that is, I think in Jaden's mind, he'd been part of Oklahoma's 2026 class for several weeks now. So he kind of had already shifted to that sort of mindset. But again, this is a guy that does a lot of national 7-on-7 stuff. So he's been around a lot of guys, and I think you're going to watch Oklahoma build that class. And again, a lot of guys can say it and want to be that kind of guy. Jaden O'Neal has a very cool air to him. Like, you're like, that's a guy other people are going to respond to.
The way that, and I don't know, maybe this is a terrible comparison, and maybe this is not what people want to hear. In a way, he kind of has that Caleb vibe to him, that he's very, very comfortable in front of a camera, which you don't see for guys that young, especially going into his junior year.
You know what I liked most about him is, so we had him on a Zoom call, and we were like, hey, Jaden, can you see these highlights? And as soon as he saw himself, at OU's camp, he just was smiling from ear to ear.
Yeah, there's still like a little bit of innocence.
Yeah,
there,
he's
just
kinda,
in terms of like, oh yeah, he is
like, wow,
17 years old, 16 years old.
Well, he has that gift, guys, that there are a lot of guys that you're like, he's confident, but you're like, he's arrogant. Like, there's not that. Jaden O'Neal is confident, but he doesn't come off as, like full of himself or hard to deal with because of that confidence. Like, he's just he's likable. Like, I think that's just an easy way to say that. And again, you look at the tape, you look at what he brings as a player. He's a guy that people are going to want to play with. I know people kind of look at his ranking right now. I think in the On3 industry, he's like 78 or 74, somewhere right in that ballpark. I'd be very surprised if by the end of this, he's not pushing into the 40s and maybe even well above that. I don't think 5-star is out of the question for him by the end of the campaign.
It was very apparent. It didn't take long from the moment that he arrived at camp 2 Thursdays ago. The ball comes out of his hand a little bit differently than everybody else.
And we say that, guys. He was throwing next to Peyton Houston, who's Oklahoma's probably at this point primary 2027 quarterback target, and Kevin Sperry was there as well. So, I mean, like, it's not like there were nobodies there, but his presence, his size, his velocity, it all just looked a little different. He's a guy that, you build around. And again, we talked a lot about, 2026 and how Oklahoma was going to look at these camps and kind of gauge interest. We love Tate Reynolds. Tate Reynolds was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I still wouldn't have him. I thought he was, a hair below Jaden O'Neal. And again, it was his confidence and the way he handled himself. There are some guys that just walk in the room and you're like, that's a quarterback. And Jaden O'Neal is one of those guys. Like, you're like, he's just kind of one of those guys just kind of line up. We talked about it in that recruiting report, Eddie. Hayden Jones drove down just to hang out with him. And I don't even remember if Hayden stayed long enough for when Jaden actually got there. I think he went over and saw the private workout for a little bit. But in general, he wasn't there for much of Jaden's camp. It was just a chance to hang out with his guy. And, obviously Jaden's putting in a little pitch at that point in time.
Josh, what do you – not that there's a lot to make out of it, but I know you weren't there and it's not fair, but – what do you make of Kevin Sperry's Elite 11 performance?
I know a lot of people saw the numbers. I think it was like 10 of 21 in the 7-on-7 session. Listening to a few people that were there and talking to him, he got victimized by some drops. So what I didn't know, and honestly, I just learned this kind of this week. The first night, they've got, like, Marcus Harris was there, for example, the recent OU wide receiver commitment. He was there on night 1. And then night 2 and night 3, it feels like a lot of guys that I heard somebody put it as a lot of guys are going to be going pro in something other than football. And I think that was a part of it. I think he had some drops. He suffered a little bit. But again, I think within the Elite 11, he finished as number 9 overall. So, like, it was a strong performance. It wasn't, a couple years ago, we saw Jackson Arnold win the thing. We've seen several other OU guys do those kind of things. I think it was very solid and a pretty good indicator of where Kevin Sperry is. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in this class, but after the first 3 or 4, I think you get into a pretty mixed bag from about 5 to 15, where they're all, some of them are real potential-driven guys, and then some are very much guys that are very fundamentally sound and kind of have the high floor. And I kind of think that's Kevin Sperry. I don't see any way he's a bad college football player, I wonder sometimes about the upside. But again, I thought he performed pretty well at the Elite 11 for the portions I got to see.
You mentioned Marcus Harris. That's kind of the first commitment of this trio here over the last couple days. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I guess, surprise, because everything that went into, like, going back even to last Friday when we did the preview show, going into Champion Weekend, I think that it was somebody that we obviously mentioned and somebody that you talked about. I don't think that any of us expected him to actually commit and become the fourth wide receiver in this group that Emmett Jones is putting together.
Well, he was technically third because he committed before Manny Choice.
Sure.
But you're right. I mean, that was, and I want to say, I think we talked a little bit about Marcus last time. But there's no question, Eddie. I mean, he is a guy that we're seeing Oklahoma really like. I mean, like, they don't get me wrong, they like their slot guys, the Zion Raggins, the KJ Daniels, those kind of quick, explosive guys. But at the same time, I feel like Emmett Jones's kind of home row is like that 5'11" to about 6'1". They can play him outside. They can put him in the slot. It provides them a lot of versatility with how, we talk about it all the time. Like, you don't want your personnel to give an indication to the defense of what you're looking to do here. Like, this is what we're planning to do because, if Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson are on the field, verticals are probably on the table. I mean, that's something you kind of know. You put Marcus Harris out there, and maybe, if Cortez Mills were part of this class, like, you get a little more variety in the ways you can attack a defense. And I think that's something Oklahoma has kind of identified. And, I say that to lead into Manny Choice.
I was going to say,
who is a big,
the fourth member of that group is Manny Choice, who committed over the weekend.
Yeah. The big guy from Lancaster. And again, this is a guy I went to that Dallas Under Armour, Eddie, and we've talked about that a little bit, thinking like, oh, he's going to be big and a little awkward, that kind of thing. But he moves really naturally, really fluid athlete I mean, if he's not 6'4", he's 6'3" in a whole bunch. Like, he's real close. He is a big kid and like big, long arms, just a big framed kind of guy. Kind of, and OU fans will hate this comparison because it's one I make sometimes in the commitment breakdowns. I did not for Emmanuel Choice. But he kind of reminds you in frame of Dahu Green because just Dahu was so big and so like big shoulders, big bodied. And that's kind of what Emmanuel Choice is. Although Emmanuel's better with his feet, he's a good crisp route runner. Like, he's a guy that it wouldn't shock me at all if, kind of depending on how the portal works, how NFL departures work, if he found a role in year one at Oklahoma, I don't think that would be shocking.
All right, let's talk about
real quick, just to kind of get it out of the way, because it did happen this morning before we started podcasting, but it was something that we had talked about even going back into last week at camp, was maybe, I guess, somewhat of a development, maybe, along the offensive line. Oklahoma did add a preferred walk-on today in Sean Hutton. Now, is it Hutton? Is that how you pronounce it, Josh?
Yep, that's right.
Notable. Usually we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about PWOs, but I think that like this one has a little bit of a unique circumstance in that he is a teammate of 2025 five-star offensive lineman Michael Fasusi down at Louisville.
Yeah, I think it's big. I mean, because when you look at Michael Fasusi's Twitter page, his most recent tweet is a congratulations to his good buddy Sean Hutton. They are close. They are good friends. I want to be really clear though. This is a guy Oklahoma likes a lot. Like I can tell you in speaking to people at Louisville, Bill Bedenbaugh and frankly,
it's not a charity.
The Texas staff.
It's not a charity case.
Yes, this isn't a deal where we'll just take him and hope you get him. Kind of reminds me, I mean, to a little different level, but when Oklahoma offered Eli Bowen, everybody's like, "Oh, that's to get Peyton Bowen." Everybody I talked to at OU was like, "No, Eli Bowen's really good, really, really good." And all we've heard since Eli Bowen arrived was, "Holy crap, this guy's going to be a player for Oklahoma." So I think this is kind of a similar thing where people assume one thing, but guys, I can tell you, talking to some people, he's compared very favorably to Eric Wren, who we all know was a starter on that 2017 team. Guys, the last man to hold Creed Humphrey out of a starting job was Eric Wren. So, I mean, like, I don't know how much more highly you can speak of a guy. But yeah, this is a guy OU really wanted. I know Texas did too. And in both cases, obviously it is more appealing because of the connection to Michael Fasusi. That matters. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But this was a guy that I think, independent of Michael Fasusi, they still absolutely would have wanted as a PWO. And again, if he's OU starting center in 3 or 4 years, I don't think anyone should be surprised.
Josh, was there anything coming out of Champ U Barbecue that we haven't really talked about either on YouTube or that we could talk about now? Any feedback that you got?
I will say probably just because it's such a big storyline is Andrew Babaloa, and I had a chance. We've got a full story up on the front page. 5-star offensive lineman from Kansas. He loved the visit. I mean, I think it went really well, guys. Daniel Akinkunmi is quickly becoming one of Oklahoma's like star hosts. There's always a couple on every roster. Yeah, and he hosted on Andrew, and I think they really hit it off. Now, there's still a lot of buzz. I think this, and I wrote about it in Woke that went up a little while ago. Again, get over to Scoop and, read it if you haven't already. This feels kind of like a 3-team race. I know Stanford is several predictions are in with him for Stanford. He is a very smart kid. His father's a doctor. Like, there's a lot to say that makes sense. Like, I'm not I'm not against that idea at all. I can tell you there are several coaching staffs involved in this that are like, he's not going to go to Stanford. Like, they just don't believe that. So we'll see what happens. But, I mean, I know Michigan's involved here. Oklahoma is a very real contender. But speaking to a couple people, guys, I mean, and this is largely what Woke was about this week, the chances that Oklahoma, gets one of Babalola, Lamont Rogers, and Michael Fasusi seems pretty strong. Like, there's no guy that I would say, well, that's the guy. That's the one they're going to get. But the odds they miss out on all three based on the stuff I'm hearing and kind of the conversations that are going on behind closed doors, I struggle to believe that. It can happen. I don't promise anything, but I think Oklahoma really maybe as strong as consistently strong reviews of official visits that I can remember. Like, there are very few guys that aren't like, it was amazing, like almost like, oh, life-changing experience kind of thing. Like, and you guys can take that with a grain of salt, whatever. But I do think Oklahoma really made an impact with all these guys.
Do you think that they did anything different in terms of what they were showing them, or is it just a sheer connection, I guess, from the coaching staff with the player that has been different as maybe opposed to years past, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I've got you. I think largely it was kind of a culmination. Like, I thought Oklahoma did a better job with figuring out what guys needed to see, what they needed to hear, what questions needed to be answered. Guys, and we haven't even touched on it. They lose Max Granville out of the weekend.
Yeah.
Talking to people around him, Oklahoma fired every shot they needed to fire. I think Penn State just had a track record of producing players like him into the NFL draft. Chop Robinson just went in the first round. Micah Parsons a couple years ago. I mean, like, kind of those 6'2", 6'3", edgy twitchy edge rushers. And I think that's what won out here. I just do.
What's funny about that? Like, if you're a kid in Texas, like Micah Parsons, you're going to know. I mean, the funny thing is, people forget this. Remember, he sat out that whole year before he went to the NFL. He sat out the COVID year.
Yep. Guys, it's not unlike a couple years ago when Oklahoma had an edge in a weird place with Trent Williams starting for the Redskins, and they're recruiting Anton Harrison because he was a D.C. area guy. Like, it almost was like, oh, it just gave them a little extra shine to be like, hey, look at this guy starring on Sundays, because obviously we all know Micah Parsons is a mutant. So I think that's but again, talking to people, OU's NIL offer, and I've heard a pretty good description of the numbers. Very strong. Like, this was not. They didn't lose to Penn State because of money. They didn't. I know a big part of it also was how's he going to be used? Well, they made R. Mason Thomas his official, his host the whole weekend. And they hung out, they talked, like this is how we're going to use you. They showed him some, Vic Beasley stuff from their time at Clemson. I mean, they made it less about the soul mission and all those kind of things, which Max liked. I don't want to say that is wrong, but I do think they wanted to see more of the, the hard numbers. And I don't mean that from just NIL, but just like show us the facts, like show us what it's going to look like, what he's going to do, how this is all going to fit. And I just think Penn State had a track record that Oklahoma, can't match at this point.
All right. Trying to think. I don't think we have anything we haven't talked about, unless you want to just touch on the Andrew Marsh situation and kind of what happened there.
I mean, it just seems like a decision was made. They like the other guys more.
I mean, obviously did they cancel his visit, or they just told him, hey, you don't have to come? I mean, they tell him don't come.
What I was told, and this is from Andrew, is that they had delayed it until the season, which tells me like they know what that is. It's the same deal as the Ty Haywood situation. Like once Ty Haywood didn't make it to Norman in June, that race was run. It was over. Andrew Marsh is going to decide, just like 95% of the top 250 guys in the country. His decision will be made by August 1st. Like that's just going to happen. So I think they knew it. The fact that predictions just started immediately rolling in for Michigan, and I believe I put one in too. I think I put it in sometime yesterday. I think it says a lot about where Oklahoma was with Andrew Marsh. I think they were probably going to – it could have been, Andrew Marsh and Manny Choice joining Marcus Harris and the recent wide receiver commitments, and Emmett Jones just continuing to roll in dudes. I also think it's kind of an indicator of how they're feeling about Cortez Mills, guys, because I continue to hear he's a take. Like the OU is going to find a way to get him in this class if they can. Now they're fighting Clemson. He went to LSU last weekend after he canceled his Miami visit. I think that's a huge win for Oklahoma. LSU kind of a late comer. You think like, okay, Oklahoma can weather that storm. Beating out, getting him to not take that Miami trip is big, just because we know, Miami guys like to stay in that area. There's a lot of appeal there. There's a lot of camaraderie. I get the impression people around him wanted him to get out of Miami, so maybe that wouldn't have come together anyway. But I kind of think this comes down to Clemson and Oklahoma. I know Clemson has led for a while, but I think Emmett Jones may be kind of working his magic on Cortez Mills right now.
And we have a softball. Do we have a softball portal?
Fourth softball commitment is in, and Bob Prisbilla already has a story up on Sooner Scoop about it. We talked about it yesterday on the Stickball Report. Shout out to Bob. He's now 2 for 2 as Isabella Smith makes the call this morning.
Bob is loving softball life right now. It's nothing compared to Porter Moser and his transfer portal.
When you get all of your first hits, like your first options in the softball world, it makes it pretty easier. But, I think that there is going to be a lot of people that look at it as, this pitcher from Campbell. She was an 8th in the country in strikeouts a year ago. All-conference selection out of the CAA, which is, I believe, the Colonial Athletic Conference, or Association, I guess that would be. It's not CAC, it's CAA. But either way, seems like she's a pretty good pitcher. And then obviously the big one still out there with Nigel Kennedy and everything that kind of goes into that. So it's going to be kind of interesting. And Bob also called the Agbayani edition yesterday. Do you remember Benny Agbayani, Josh? Catcher in the Major League, played for probably 10 plus years.
Oh, was he an Indian? Like, why does that ring a bell?
He played for like 6 or 7 teams, I think. I kind of remember him as a Met for some reason.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he hit a big grand slam at Wrigley one time, but he was around for quite a while. But yeah,
that was like Bobby Valentine era, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Oklahoma's now up to 4 transfer portal additions. So the job is almost completed. I think Nigel Kennedy would obviously round out what has been a fantastic class. And we also talked about it on the Stickball Report yesterday, just in terms of Oklahoma and Skip Johnson, and was he going to be headed to Texas, or was Texas even interested in?
Oh my God, Texas A&M has their own Lincoln Riley now.
By some of the stuff that's coming out, and obviously this is kind of like, I guess we're playing the other side of the fence now with the Lincoln Riley stuff, when we were all making claims of a nasty exit. But Jim Schlossnagle is making his exit from College Station look like it's basically amateur hour in comparison to, or I guess Lincoln Riley was amateur hour in compared to what Jim Schlossnagle's doing. You talk about leaving the cupboard bare.
Can we just podcast live from the first UT at A&M game? Like, can we just go down there and do a live? I just want to watch. What is it, Bluebell Field or
Bluebell
whatever?
Park, yeah.
That place is going to be a madhouse. That's going to be unbelievable.
If they don't schedule Texas to go to College Station, they need to completely that will be my first gripe with this conference. They have to do it.
Texas went back to Texas Tech. Now they have to go to Austin or to College Station.
Yeah, they should play that one as much as possible. That is going to be just a unbelievable.
It is
that
like
atmosphere will be crazy.
The biggest slime ball snake move that I can remember. I think it's worse than Riley. Just because of the way that
I don't think
everything was on Tuesday.
I don't think it is because Lincoln Riley didn't leave to go
know.
coach
You're going
for
to
his
Texas.
former athletic director.
Sure. And that is an out, but everything that he said on Tuesday night after the game and
so poorly handled.
Dressing up and down the Texads reporter Richard Zane that asked the question, the way that he acted, it's almost like it almost makes it more criminal that everything had already been in place, and now there's stuff.
He told everyone that he's used to leaving things.
He did. If you go back and look at what he said on Tuesday night, it makes it I guess a little bit easier just in terms of an out.
If he'll leave his family, he'll leave you.
Supposedly he's a swinger, but we don't know that. That's an allegation.
So that's a beep. That's a blurp.
It's an allegation. It's out there. I think it's kind of known. He got a divorce from his wife.
Did he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You
need to be sure of these things. This is a man who's probably very litigious right now.
Well, he's just blocking everybody, which makes it even worse. He's literally, if you have typed anything about Jim Schlossnagle in the last 24 hours, you're probably blocked.
Eddie tried to start fitting in conspiracy theories at the end of Joe's appearance today.
I just wanted to know what he thought about Building 7. That's all. No, we're kidding. But not really. But it is really disgusting. Just with all the guys that have now entered the portal, it's a nasty situation.
Hey, at least it's not us dealing with it.
Again, there are, and I'm not going to name them because I will refuse to give the clout, but the people that mocked OU fans for feeling some way about the way Riley handled it, and now to be just in tears over Schlossnagle doing it, I'm like,
very similar.
I mean,
you get to have that both ways.
It is like it's the one school, and I talked about this on throughout the College World Series. It was going to take a lot for me to have to kind of cheer for Tennessee in a way. And they found the one school that I was like, okay, I think I'm okay with pulling for the Vols.
Yeah, at least USC's halfway across the country and there's no rivalry involved for Lincoln League.
As we've discussed, I've got connection to that. I had connection to that A&M program, and I tried. It's hard. It's hard to feel. I don't know. It just feels weird. It's like I'm not part of that cult. Why am I cheering for them?
I didn't know how to feel after game one, but after the second game, I was like, yeah, I want Tennessee to win this.
After I saw the enjoyment on social media from some people, I was like, okay, I think I'm good on this. It's the one school. It is kind of interesting to see the general Oklahoma fan base reaction. I think a lot of people are pointing and laughing, even though Texas is getting stronger out of this thing. I
don't understand how any OU fan could laugh at this. I mean,
I think it's hilarious.
How terrible this is.
I think that a lot of people, though, certainly there is a certain level of not saying that they're holding hands going into the SEC, but I don't know. You kind of look at Texas, or at least I do, as the school that is going alongside of Oklahoma going into this new endeavor. I don't know. I guess in a way it kind of feels good to be with somebody else on the ride.
Yeah, the bad thing for A&M is, I mean, you lose the national championship, and within 24 hours, your entire program is blown up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not
That's
not what
the
happened.
funny part.
Lincoln was a slow burn. I mean, that was a substandard season. Remember, I mean, it was everything's close. Like, and you felt like something wasn't going on. And then we had the whole, Baylor week and the off week and what was happening then. And then they had 2 weeks to prepare and they looked like shit and they lost.
Well, and just like what we knew
and
about
then the Bedlam game, and then what about Marvin Mims? When they had him on the Family Business, they were asking him, like, why weren't you returning punts in that game? Because Drake was out, and he practiced punting all week, and like just more returning punting, and then they told him you're not doing it this game. Like just more stuff, more conspiracies to add to the Flames.
I think just like that, and we're going to find out just like this situation in College Station in Austin, this has been in the works for quite some time. Things like this don't happen overnight. And, I think that there's reports out now even going all the way into early June. I know that Ryan Baumgartner, is it Baumgartner, the guy for TexEx, that has put some stuff out this morning saying that he was contacted all the way back in the first week of June that something like this could be a possibility.
Browninger.
Brian
Browninger. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Bauminger is the guy from The Office. But, yeah, it's crazy. I'm glad I'm not covering it. I mean, these people are going to fight each other for forever now.
It's the Hatfields and McCoys forever.
It's the perfect SEC entry point for Texas. Like, they get to be the villain that, so many people think of them as. And for all the reasons that people do think of them as such.
This is this is so much more a feather in their cap for Texas. Than Oklahoma State beating OU in football in the last game.
Yes. I mean, try to even picture that idea of Lincoln Riley changing and going to Oklahoma State. Like, the loss wouldn't even have mattered. It'd be like, what the hell is it just upsets the entire ecosystem.
It's crazy. I still can't believe that he did it. Like, at the end of the day, I thought that maybe there was a chance, and just with all of the I think people that were involved that were talking about it, like the Kendall Rogers of the world, that were a little mum on the idea of it. And then when it actually happened, I was like, okay, this all does make sense.
What's that you see it on TikTok and Instagram? It's when the lady with the southern accent says, like, say the weird thing, and it's just gonna be it's just going to be the opening press conference for everything that Schlossnagle says at his opening press conference introduced.
Oh, he's already had it. He's already had it, what made it even more like awkward. He started it by apologizing to the Richard Zane guy because he was there. All the A&M people, media went up to Austin to cover it today, which is just even more awkward.
That. Well, yeah, I mean, we would have if Lincoln Riley would have went to Oklahoma State, everybody that covered OU would have gone up there to cover it.
I will say, though, I think Lincoln Riley's too big of a pussy to have a press conference the day after. At least Jim Schlossnagle is somewhat standing up in front of it and answering the questions, as opposed to Lincoln. I don't think that there would have been a chance that he would have had a press conference less than 16 or whatever hours after coming back from Omaha, or Stillwater, or wherever.
Schlossnagle's a much more proven coach.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, and I think Riley is impacted by what people think of him. It's why he keeps trying to create narratives and like trying to create sympathy.
Yeah.
Schlossnagle pretty clearly does not give a shit. He doesn't care what you think about him or anything else.
Yeah,
I'd say that's accurate.
He's a good coach. Texas is going to be really good next year.
Yeah.
All right. That is going to do it. George will be back on Friday, so I think we have... I don't know, but we'll have wall-to-wall coverage.
There's a lot of stuff coming.
Day, but
there's a lot of stuff. I think we're going to try to do something with the On3 National on Friday just kind of leading into what is
you guys in
a
Staples.
massive like OU celebration of sorts on Monday with July 1, as Joe C. discussed with us earlier.
Yeah, it's going to be
still weird to be able to say that.
It's going to be a great week coming up, and even get to see. We'll have video of like Love's Field if you're not able to get down here on a Monday and go to it. I'll go out and take some pictures too. So really, we've seen some of the lockers are awesome for softball.
Yeah, just a little bit of it. Was that with
that was
Abby
yesterday?
Dayton's?
That was yesterday.
It was Abby Dayton's announcement from
there was one.
Monday.
I had a hard time finding one of her, but yesterday I can't say her name. The girl that committed yesterday.
Oh, Agbayani.
She was standing in front of the lockers.
Alana,
sure.
I believe.
The girl from BYU.
Yeah, Agbayani.
So, yeah, great for Patty Gasso. Doing well. We'll keep you updated also on
Everybody
Nigeria
wants the big
Kennedy.
one.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the big sauce.
Well, all eyes turn to Kennedy from here on out. So, that will be the last one if they can get it.
Seriously, though, she is the last, I think, kind of piece to this puzzle, or at least the last arm that's out there.
It's enough so far. You can say, it makes you say, "Holy shit! Could they do a fifth?" That's how good the portal recruiting.
Not only can they, but I think that they
if they get Kennedy,
they're gonna be just not as good as they have been, but they've literally gone out and hand selected for the better players from the portal. And I'm not even a portal softball like junkie, but at the same time, like, just look at the numbers. They're all for All-American caliber type players,
and all the backups have gone to SEC schools where
crazy.
They're treated like welcomed heroes.
Yeah. SJ
Which
Guerin,
they're good players.
Yeah, SJ Guerin's what? Auburn. Lilio went to South Carolina, and
South
then,
Carolina.
Avery Hodge
went to LSU. Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Really, once again, can't thank Joe Castiglione enough. The real Joe Castiglione, not the fake one that we employ. No, he's a good dude. He's not fake. Joe Jr. does a great. Well, I feel like I need to spread it out. George is getting so much from Eddie. I have to spread out some things to the rest of the staff.
I'm just kidding with him. He knows that.
You almost drove him crazy. I of all people had to tell him to step away from his laptop.
Accurate. That part's accurate, but I don't think that he had to be talked about it.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll continue to fight off air.
He's doing drugs tonight, too.
Oh, God.
I hope the story
here we go.
This.
Thank you for listening. Birthday. We'll be back. Happy birthday, George. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.